Ryan Medora here, and we are back with another bass lesson. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about theory, a little bit about technique, and offering you a really simple exercise to help you understand your fretboard a little bit better. If you want to get tab or notation for this, please head over to my Patreon page. You can get that there, as well as the backing track and fun things to accompany basically all the lessons that you see here at this channel. But in the meantime, let's get into it so that you can get to practicing. So the name of the game here is understanding the intervals on our bass and kind of starting to visualize certain relationships on the fretboard. So when we talk about an interval, basically what we mean is it's the distance from one note to another. And a lot of times we talk about the intervals as, going from the root note of a scale to another note within the scale. And we'll say, oh, you know what, if we're in the key of E and we go from E to F sharp, that's like a major second, or 1 to 2. It's also a whole step, so the interval distance is a whole step or 2 frets, and it's also called a major second. If we were to go from E to G sharp, we would refer to that as a major third, where we're basically going up 2 whole steps to the major third. If we go from E to A, we're going up a fourth, so that's the interval of a fourth. This E to B is a fifth, a major, or we would call it a perfect fifth, but we do find it as scale degree 5 of our major scale. Going up to the sixth, that's going to be a C sharp, and we will call that a major sixth. We have a D sharp as our major seventh, which is the 7th note of our scale, and then we land back at E. So when we talk about intervals, we basically are really going through it and saying root to the major second, major third, 4th, 5th, major 6th, major 7th. There's our octave. Now the important thing is that we want to perceive these intervals both higher and lower, or ascending and descending, on the fretboard. Meaning, if we wanted to maybe put our pinky here and pretend that this is the octave, we can actually play a whole scale lower. So we can descend and find our intervals there, meaning that we can go from this E to our major second, but instead of going up to this F sharp, we can go from this E down to this F sharp, and that is also still a major second. We can go from the E to the G sharp, which is also a major, this third, the same way. We can go higher, we can go lower, we can go to our 4th, to our 5th, to our 6th, to the 7th, and then return. So this interval recognition is basically just saying, I know that my tonic or my home is E, and I can go through our major scale and we can identify the distance from the root note to a note within the scale, and we just consider those the intervals. And learning where they are on the fretboard is really important. So one exercise that I like to do is to just acclimate myself to this, give it a little bit of a groove so it doesn't feel so banal, and I'm kind of just picking a rock groove, kind of just like a 1, 2, and 3. And what I like to do is I like to play that groove and go from my root note to the interval, play it higher, and then the root note to that interval lower. So for instance, we'll go 1 to 2, ascending, and then 1 to 2, descending. Then we'll keep going, 1 to 3. Now when I did that, one thing that I decided to do was I used my middle finger to start playing the major third higher, so that I used my middle finger to my index finger as if I were playing a major scale. But then when I descended to the interval, I put my pinky there, so it almost feels like I'm playing down, like 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, landing there. So I'm going middle to index, and then pinky to index to go root to the higher third, and then root to the lower third. And that's just good technique. Now we're going to the higher 4th, finding that lower, the 5th, finding that lower, root to 6, lower 6, root to 7th, lower 7th, well, that's just a half step below, and then returning. So as you can see, I've kind of played through all of these intervals both from the root to the ascending interval, root to the descending interval. I've given it a little bit of a groove. And then if I want, I can play around with this and I can find some of these intervals in different places. For instance, the sixth, if I'm going from the E here to the C sharp, which is the sixth, I can find that here or here. So I could choose to play, oh, here's my root to the lower sixth in one position or in another. So some of these intervals you'll be able to find in multiple locations. So this is just a really great thing to do to get familiar with the fretboard and to start to realize that when you're learning a song and you're playing through a chord progression, sometimes the choice is yours when you get to decide to go higher or lower. And then also some of these intervals are a little bit dependent upon the key that we're in. I chose to play this exercise in the key of E because it gives us a full octave higher and lower on the instrument when we start at this 7th fret E. If we were playing in a different key, for instance in the key of G, if we're starting here, we're actually only going to have so many intervals that we can play lower or higher. So if we're playing on a standard 4-string bass, and we play our G major scale, the only other notes that we would have descending would be in E. So we could play the root, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. Those aren't repeating notes. We don't have those as lower intervals yet. It's only until we get to the scale degree 6 or the major 6th interval that we could also play it lower. So every key on the instrument has kind of like these little nuanced things that make it an interesting thing that will kind of dictate some of the choices that you're able to make as you're playing the instrument. So just think about that the next time you sit down and pick up your instrument and want to play through an exercise. Get familiar with your fretboard, learn your intervals, and enjoy the freedom that it offers you when you can find notes in multiple locations. So I hope you dug this lesson. Again, happy practicing, everybody. Have a great day.